Why is inflation a worry for my money? This is something that, as a financial advisor, I talk to clients about all the time. What I hope to do in this video is explain what inflation is and, very simply, how it affects our money in basic terms. I'll also post a recording of a presentation we did in 2020 as we started to learn from the financial impact of the pandemic, which goes into lots of detail about inflation and its impact on your money. Back then, we predicted that inflation may be on the rise, and here we are, it is starting to happen. So, inflation, simply put, inflation is the rising cost of living. We hear it quoted using lots of different measures, so you might hear of RPI or perhaps CPI, but basically it's a measure of the price of the things that we spend our money on. And over time, the price of most of these things goes up. If you think back to the price of something like a bar of chocolate when you were young and what it would cost. So for me, 25, 30p. These days, you're looking at probably 60 or 70p for a Mars bar. So inflation has pushed up that price over the years. Inflation is one of the key aspects of maintaining economic stability, and it will always be there in some way, shape or form. Many people will recall times of high inflation and eye-watering interest rates in the 1970s. Then, in recent years, we've come to accept that anything more than a couple of percent is considered to be high. It's even possible to have deflation where the cost of living actually falls. The government bodies responsible for inflation will try to manage it in such a way as to generate the economic conditions that they need using tools such as interest rates or manipulating the amount of money in the economy to try and control inflation. So that's what inflation is. Now, moving on to why is it dangerous for savings? Well, basically, the money that we're saving, by definition, isn't to be spent today. It's to be used in the future. Be that when we retire, when we move house, or perhaps when we eventually pass it on to family. As inflation goes up around us, we want our money to continue to be worth at least what it's worth today and to hold its own value. This means that it needs to grow at least in value by the same amount that inflation is going up. So if inflation goes up by, say, 2%, our money needs to go up by the same amount just to be worth the same in future years. I can't stress enough, if inflation goes up by 2%, our money will buy us less in a year's time unless it also grows by at least 2%. So we need our savings to grow just to stand still. And this is fine when interest rates are high, but when you're getting 0.5% in the bank and inflation is going up by, say, 2%, it's easy to see that over time your money will deteriorate in value. It's bad enough if the money's in this position for a year or two, but imagine the toll inflation will take if the money is there for the long term. It's not all doom and gloom though. If your cash in the bank is at risk of being devalued by inflation, you could consider investing. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go high risk. Simply looking at the alternatives to leaving your money 100% in cash can give you the hedge you need against inflation. Yes, shares are one option. However, there are also lots of other avenues you can go down, which will provide you with the protection you need over the longer term against inflation. As I mentioned, I will post our recent seminar on inflation, which can provide further information and detail on the options available. But as a simple explanation of the problem of inflation, I hope that this has been helpful.